Hi, everybody. I'm Susan. Dzieduszycka-Suinat is the whole name, but you can all call me Susan. And it's really exciting to be here with you today. I didn't want to spend too much time introducing the foundation, but you might want to know a few things. First, we have one mission and one vision, and that's that every citizen is a voter, and that includes you, if you're a U.S. citizen, no matter where you are. And we are nonpartisan. We are not harvesting your data. We are not selling your data. And we're not asking you to be a card-carrying member. We're welcoming donations, of course, but that's something else altogether. And there is no fee to be a voter from abroad. So just so you know that. Everything we do is around making voting a central action to your life. And we've designed a number of websites that help to do that. This is how we express our work through these 3 different websites. Now I said, after 2 kids, I said, I'm not having any more, and I kept my promise. But then this year something happened and I ended up with a 3rd website, even though I'd sworn that off too. So we've got not only U.S. Vote Foundation, but Overseas Vote and US.vote. Differences between the 3, I definitely want to show those to you. But one other thing I also wanted to mention was that aside from providing free public services around voting to anyone who needs them, we also offer our election data. That's not personal voter data. That's things like dates and deadlines and kind of detailed data to a lot of the election community out there. A lot of other organizations are driving their applications off of our data and using it. So we're also an infrastructure product, I guess we could say. And I did that in order to create a self-sustaining revenue in a world where it's very hard to get grants and donations. So in the rough times, we survive off the licensing fees. Now, you'd think election data might be worth a lot. It is worth a lot, and it changes all the time. The day after the election, we have to redo everything. But yeah, we try to do this very affordably, and so we do have quite the number of organizations that we are supporting. I'm gonna move out of this. Let's see. I actually wanted to go to the website in real time. I would prefer to do an actual demo and show you how it is working so you can do the same. What you see here is U.S. Vote Foundation, which is really the main brand website. And this is where I like to just describe it as a place where we keep all our moving parts. So the menu at the top shows you an easy way to get to things. You can see that overseas absentee ballot request is there. You can see right away that we serve all different kinds of voters, overseas and domestic, and different types of voters. Here under election information is where we have sort of state data. We have databases that where any particular item is classified by state, you can look up what is relevant to you by state. And there's so much in here. I won't really go into it in detail right now. I'll take you into 1 or 2 in the process of going through some other things. Voter assistance. Not only do we help voters abroad and mainstream U.S. voters, I'll call them domestic voters, but also those with disabilities, those who are justice impacted as well. We have state guides because there are a lot of accommodations for people, and you may not need these things in your position right now abroad, but they are available to your family if they're back home in the U.S. And then we have charts, lots of charts. I'm sure you love charts as much as I do. The Where's My Ballot chart is my favorite one for right now. I just signed up for my own state ballot tracking and received a note today that my ballot had already been received and counted. So that was exciting. Now, if you scroll down our website, you see this these are the same services that are surfaced in different ways to help you find what you need. And this part of the website is just kind of uncovering a little bit what's in the menus, telling you a little bit more what it's about. And here you see is the help desk, and we really are experts in answering your questions personally. But I'm very happy to take questions in this webinar. We also have a great blog, which is very educative, very informative. We really try to inform and not influence, keeping to our nonpartisanship. So I'm going to pop over to Overseas Vote Foundation here. That's enough for the U.S. Vote Foundation for the moment. Overseas Vote is really now, it's been completely reinvented, redesigned for this year, really to tell you if you're the first time voting abroad or the 10th time maybe though, that you're going wherever you are, you've got your right to vote with you in your pocket. You don't have to have any history of voting previously. You don't have to have a current address in the U.S. You've got your right to vote. So how does that work? We go into what that process is. All of these pages lead you to more depth on any one topic. And we help you find those tools that you need. So this page for the overseas tools and services, this is bringing you directly into what you may need. And that's going to take you into the U.S. Vote Foundation directly to part of their website that you might need. Okay, going back. Let's go back down. This is one of my favorite pages about overseas voting myths. Each one is what the myth is and what the truth is, and you can learn more.
Actually, if you don't mind, Susan, I had a quick question about that because it's something that, I hope you don't mind me just jumping in there, but there's something that, a question that we sometimes get from, I'm thinking in terms of like, for example, what we call accidental Americans, and I'm sure you're familiar with that term as well. Some people come to us thinking, hey, I've never lived in the States, I just have this passport with my dad or mom, etc. So is that also the case for them, that there's some voting myths around that? I don't know if you can clear up anything regarding how they would go about voting.
Absolutely. So I believe what you're talking about specifically is U.S. citizens who are born abroad, who never established residency in a state in the U.S. Do they get voting rights?
Correct.
And that question is addressed in a couple ways. One is we do have a blog on that, but on this FAQ here, one of these questions, as a U.S. citizen born abroad, can I vote? And you see this long list of states. These are states that do allow you, if you're born abroad, to vote. And how do you know what is your voting residence address? So that term alone is important to understand. A voting residence address is your address in the U.S. for voting purposes only. Okay, you're not saying you live there, but you're saying that is either the last place you lived, or if you're you have a U.S. citizen parent from any one of these states, it's where they are now or where the last place they lived if they're also abroad. So, for example, I vote in California. You can see California's on this list. I have 2 kids. They've inherited my voting residence address in California. Unfortunately, there are 12 states that do not extend this right. What's really odd is Pennsylvania, because they did pass a law to extend this right. And there's actually a lawsuit in Pennsylvania against these voters, but they're not listed with the Federal Voting Assistance Program as being on this list here.
I thought you were going to say that it's weird because they're kind of the swing state of the cycle, but maybe that.
Well, I think that might have a lot to do with why they have the lawsuit.
Gotcha.
And there's another one for North Carolina.
Okay.
It's
well, there you
also
go.
on this list too. So I've been spending a lot of time on those lawsuits recently. And more to come. But this question is where you should go if you are wondering about that. And I would absolutely say, or just remind you that we do have a voter help desk that can take, if you have a personal question about something like this, I would highly suggest that you go ahead and submit that. So, let me go back to where we were. Actually, we have all these myths versus facts on one page. One of them also is about taxes. And, we all know that as Americans abroad, we have a tax obligation at the federal level, but not at the state level necessarily if we're not living, if we're not intending to return. If we're living abroad permanently or indefinitely, we should not be voting below the federal level. Federal level is president, vice president, U.S. House, U.S. Senate. If they're not sitting in Washington, don't, governor on down. If you're permanently abroad, I would suggest you don't vote at that level unless you own property over there back in the U.S. And you're paying state taxes then anyway. So this addresses that. Again, there's a learn more. There's another page about it. Yeah, these are really good. And really good if something has kept you from voting. Actually, I'm just gonna go back to the main homepage and go scroll all the way through it so you know what's here, the myths. After that comes our help desk. You can submit a question. It asks you certain questions, identify your state, your type of voting, etc. That really helps us give you a personal answer. We have a study abroad and vote toolkit, which I don't think you need. And here you have our blog, which is really educative. I would say there's some key questions answered here, like what state do I vote in from abroad? That might be a question you have. No, you cannot choose it. It is decided for you based on certain things. Okay, you've got to have some kind of connection to that. All right, that's pretty much it for those two websites. Then I just wanted to touch base on us.vote. I don't know if we have, are we over time? And is this call ending at on the hour?
I think we still have a couple minutes to go through that. I don't think we have
Okay,
full stop there.
great. Well, what I will do is just explain to you that this website is all about how to vote. Rather than landing on a page of instructions that you have to figure out, we have dedicated this website to answering the question, and our premier application is called the Voter Journey Map. And I won't go through this because we don't have enough time apparently, but it does help you to define your voting story. It takes about 5 minutes to go through at the most. We do not collect voter data from you. You will tell the system your state and your jurisdiction in the US so that we can provide on the how to vote map for you, which you can download. You don't even need to give your email if you're worried about that. But we can give you the state-specific links that you need to request your ballot this year and vote. Hopefully, you have not passed any deadline if you haven't voted yet. I will go back to US Vote and go into election dates and deadlines here. And just choose a state. I think I'll just I'll choose California here. In dates and deadlines, notice there are two tabs. I'm going to click overseas and military voting. That's what you should do. Click the election you're concerned with. Let's say general election. You still have time if you're voting in California to request your overseas absentee ballot. The voter journey map will give you all the links you need in an order that makes sense. So you download your map and you have that all there. Keep in mind, when you go to request your overseas absentee ballot, if you already have a voter account, log into that first. It will then fill most of the data on this page for you. If you don't, that's okay. You can create one as you go through. This one process and the one form that it generates for you will do two things at once. It'll both register you to vote as an overseas voter and it will request your ballot. It's the only thing, it's the main thing you need to do. Our system will help you to apply your signature to it and email it to your election office, so you can deal with the whole thing in a few minutes. Except for the states which do not allow that, you don't have to know what that is. It'll either be offered to you if it's available to you in your state or not. If not, download the form, print it, sign it, and instructions will come with it, where to send it, how to send it. It might be a scan and an email attachment. It might be by fax, might be by post, it might be anything on that list and above and more. But we will let you know what that is, and you will be given the contact information. So that's that. I just wanted to make sure you had that information. And done, time on the hour. Thank you.
Brilliant. One of the, well, first of all, thank you very much for that, Susan. One of the questions that we had pre-submitted, we thought would be a great one to ask you here, is regarding how it works. Some people naturally are used to a process where they have to send in a ballot by mail. Some people have mentioned it's all online. Is this something that is varying from state to state, or if you have any other thoughts on how?
Yeah, it absolutely is state specific. I'm going back in, I'm going to go into election information, state voter information. Let's choose a state. I'll go California again, just because it's quick. I'm choosing overseas and military. I'm just going to get rid of this panel. And then here I've got this section, voter materials transmission options. You have a chart of all the ways you can transmit voting material back and forth. California allowed, absolutely, every overseas voter can receive their ballot electronically. They have to print it from California. You have to print it then and return it by post. All right. That's not the same in all states. There are 31 states. I'm going to randomly guess one. Let me see, Colorado. There are 31 states and 2 territories that do have, as you see, some sort of electronic voted ballot return option. So it could be that you do this entire process online, but you should be prepared to print your ballot and vote it and then move it back into an email or, scan it or upload it. Okay. Does that answer that?
That's very useful. That's a really good resource just to understand that.
Yeah.
I also,
it's all state specific.
yeah, it was kind of wishful thinking on my part too. I also vote from California, so I was thinking maybe there's an online option, but well, maybe not quite yet.
Right.
There's one other thing that I wanted to ask about. You mentioned not voting more down ballot. Does that mean that if you were to vote for something more like, like a governor or something local or some propositions, et cetera, is the idea that this could potentially mean that you're signaling an intention to reside in the state? I don't know if that's where you were going with that.
Or that you do, and that you, yeah, and there is an issue with some states do send full ballots to voters who are indefinitely abroad. Other states only send federal ballots. I stand by my earlier statement. If you are no longer living in the state and you have no intent to return, it's totally uncertain. I would say best not to vote for state offices on down, because then there can be no argument for state taxes.
Right. Just keeping it nice and tidy at that point.
I would just say that. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that's the questions that we had, I believe. Reuben, was there any, I think if there are any other thoughts, well, Susan, we really appreciate you taking the time to walk us through that. It really seems like a great resource to use for somebody getting started on their voting journey. I think, so I think, Reuben, if I'm not mistaken, you'll be making sure everybody gets copies of these slides afterward?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll send across a copy of the slides, as well as a few links to those helpful resources that Susan has outlined for us today. And again, as she said, if you've not voted, please make sure you do. But yeah, make use of those resources. Make it easy for yourself if you can.
And there's probably still time, as you can see. You don't have to think, oh, it's too close to the election. You don't know that. So it's good to double check that.
For sure.
Mhm.
Thank you all for the time and attention and the opportunity.
Absolutely. It's
absolutely.
been a pleasure. All
All right.
right.
Well, thanks everybody. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, good luck voting.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.